Should Malik Nabers be the number 2 receiver in Dynasty leagues right now? We'll break it down next.
You are Locked On Dynasty Football, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Here are your hosts, Marcus Mosher and Kate Madjuk.
Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. It's another solo show. I do have some news. I will announce the co-host of the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast later in the week, so be sure to look out for that. We'll have Matt Williamson on for Wednesday's show. He'll continue to stay on through this entire process. So big news coming for Locked On Dynasty Football fans. Be on the lookout for that. But on today's show, we're going to take a look at Pro Football Focus's latest Dynasty rankings. They completely differ from Dynasty League Football, the site that I use probably the most. But PFF does a fantastic job of with their rankings. Nathan Yonke, who's been on this show before, he puts a tremendous amount of effort into his rankings. And I thought today we could look at some of the biggest disagreements or maybe the most shocking things in his rankings, including his new quarterback one, an Ohio State wide receiver battle that I think is fascinating in the middle range of that wide receiver conversation. We'll get to that. But let's start with this. Right now on Dynasty League Football, we've had the same wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2 for really the last 2 years. It's Justin Jefferson, Ja'Marr Chase. Pick which one you like at 1, pick which one you like at 2. CeeDee Lamb has gotten to that discussion a little bit, but that's kind of fallen off after a somewhat down season in 2024. But those are the names: Chase, Jefferson. Not for PFF and not for Nathan. Right now, if you're watching with us on YouTube, you'll see the full rankings. The number 2 receiver right now for Pro Football Focus is Malik Nabers. It's that LSU connection. We can't get away from these LSU receivers. PFF has Ja'Marr Chase as wide receiver 1, totally understandable. Malik Nabers, wide receiver 2, and a pretty decent gap between Nabers and Jefferson, a couple running backs between those guys at wide receiver 3. Hey, shocker, another LSU wide receiver, Brian Thomas as wide receiver 4. So 4 LSU receivers to start this list. And I got to say, I'm pretty surprised at Malik Nabers being number 2 in this list. And it has nothing to do with talent, because in terms of talent, I don't want to say he's just as good as Chase and Jefferson, but he's darn close. He's 95% of those guys. This isn't a talent issue. It's a situation issue for me. You look at the other receivers on this list. Chase is playing with Joe Burrow. Justin Jefferson playing with J.J. McCarthy. I get it. That's rookie quarterback, but that is a Kevin O'Connell offense that has had success with no matter who the quarterback is. Brian Thomas playing, obviously, with Trevor Lawrence. Puka Nacua at wide receiver 5 playing with Matt Stafford. And then you got CeeDee Lamb, wide receiver 6 playing with Dak Prescott. We'll come back to CeeDee. Don't you worry about that. The quarterback situation in New York with Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston, those guys are short-term options. I just don't care about them too much. Like, if Jameis is the starter, Nabers is going to get a lot of touches and a lot of targets. I'm not worried about that. So set that aside. Jaxson Dart. I don't mind Jaxson Dart, the prospect, but I really worry about this Giants team just not being very good this year. You look at the first 6 games of their schedule, and it's rough. Like, they could legitimately start out 0-6. And if that's the case, we're probably getting a new GM. We're probably getting a new head coach. Who knows what they think of Dart? Dart's going to be entering a really tough situation. Again, I'm just laying out all these things. I think of all these receivers, there's just the most uncertainty around Malik Nabers. He's a fantastic talent. He's younger than all these receivers. And that's probably why PFF decided to move him up a little bit. You're getting 2-3 years younger compared to these other options. But I just think the other players are so much safer. And I think the stability matters more for me. Obviously, Malik Nabers has ridiculous upside. Nobody's denying that at all. He could have a 1,500-yard season this year on 175, 180 targets. That's not my issue at all. It's just when you are playing without an established quarterback, with a coach that's really on his last legs and Brian Dable in a city like New York against some really good defenses in a really tough division, I have a hard time being that bold. If you wanted to put Malik Nabers like ahead of CeeDee Lamb and Brian Thomas, I get it. But the fact that Justin Jefferson has been as consistent and as safe as he's been, despite playing with so many different quarterbacks, and he plays in a dome, I do think that helps a little bit. I just can't be that bold right now. Again, Malik Nabers, wide receiver 2. I understand he's a tier 1 player. I agree with PFF here. That's just a take that feels a little bit too rich for me. Let's go down a little bit further. Just examine the top 5. Jamar Chase at 1, Malik Nabers at 2, Bijan Robinson at 3, Jahmyr Gibbs at 4. I have no problem with Bijan over Jahmyr. I think you're splitting hairs. If you have either of those guys in your dynasty leagues, I think it's fantastic. I probably prefer Bijan over Gibbs, but again, I'm happy either way. Justin Jefferson at 5. Those feel like the top, 4 of the top 5 players there. Again, I would have Nabers lower. I would also have CeeDee Lamb a little bit higher just because of the consistency. CeeDee had a quote-unquote down year last year and it was still absolutely fantastic. There is a bit of a drop-off to me in terms of talent when you get to the Brian Thomas, Puka Nacua, Bucky Irving range. Bucky Irving at 11th overall. I think that's just a little too rich for me right now. Ashton Jeanty, RB3. I'm not going to be surprised at all if we get into the season and we see Ashton Jeanty play like 2 games and everybody just moves him up to RB1. Overall, nothing too big here that I think is egregious. I think once we get outside of the top 10 and we start talking about Bucky Irving, RB4, 11th overall, that's a little bit rich to me, but would love to hear your guys' thoughts. Is Malik Nabers the wide receiver 2 in your dynasty leagues? How do you stack him up compared to Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb? I know there are other people that it will even have Amon-Ra St. Brown a little bit higher because of the situation there. I'm not there. I would much rather have Malik Nabers, but again, wide receiver 2 feels a little expensive here. All right, let's talk about the QB1 right now for Pro Football Focus. For everybody else, it's Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson. Not for PFF. We will get to that next. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there has never been a better time to get in on the action. And FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. Listen, I think the Thunder are winning the NBA championship. You can go bet on their odds right now in the futures market. Go check it out on FanDuel. But if you think the T-Wolves are going to pull off a big comeback, they have that available as well. And if you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head over to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. And if it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. And make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We are taking a look at Pro Football Focus's latest Dynasty rankings. And let's talk QBs because I find this fascinating. So over on Dynasty League Football, we've had the same quarterback 1, quarterback 2 for a while. It's Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. Their ADPs have been incredibly close over the last year. Right now, Josh Allen, 27.0. Lamar Jackson, 28.3. Josh Allen is 25th overall. Lamar Jackson, 29th overall. I'm good flipping those guys just depending on your league, depending on your settings. Perfectly fine. The most interesting thing here from PFF is that they don't have Jackson or Allen as QB1. They actually have Jaden Daniels, the rookie of the year last year, in at QB1, 17th overall. So let me say that again. Josh Allen over on Dynasty League Football, 25th overall. Lamar Jackson, 29th. Jaden Daniels, 31 on Dynasty League Football, 17th in startup drafts over at PFF. That is rich for me. And I understand the appeal. You're talking about a quarterback who is 5 years younger than Josh Allen, 4 years younger than Lamar Jackson. He's on an offense that we think is going to be improved this year. They added more weapons. Cliff Kingsbury had a fantastic year. And you're just swapping the ages, right? As great as Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen have been, you're getting significantly younger going with Jaden Daniels. So I understand that. However, I still think I would prefer Jackson and Allen because of their touchdown upside. What we've seen Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson do as runners over the last couple of years has been incredible. Josh Allen, you could lock him in for double-digit touchdowns every year. You could lock in Lamar Jackson for 800 rushing yards every single season that he's healthy. There is just some stability and consistency there that I would like with the older guys. Now, Dynasty Leagues, you're rebuilding. I understand going with Jaden Daniels because you're getting significantly younger there. But I can't do it yet. I want to see one more season of Jaden Daniels before I put him ahead of these guys like Allen and Jackson, who are just so consistent. Like a bad year for those guys, they're finishing outside the top 3 quarterbacks. Like those guys, their ceiling is so high. They're in the primes of their career. And I think someone like Josh Allen is going to be able to continue to put up massive fantasy numbers for the next 4 or 5 years. Lamar Jackson's not slowing down at all. He just had the best year of his career in 2024. Probably should have won the MVP award. He's going into year 3 under Todd Monken. And in those 3 years, MVP, second or runner-up in MVP last year. They've added some more weapons. They improved the offensive line. I know that Dynasty League Football is projecting forward, but if I'm projecting over the next 3 or 4 years, I just would rather have Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. Now, the interesting one here is Jalen Hurts, who on Dynasty League Football, he's QB4, 41.6 is his ADP. That's a pretty significant drop from Jaden Daniels. And again, I understand that. I probably would prefer Daniels as well. But Jalen Hurts gets so many rushing touchdowns because of the tush push, and he's surrounded by the best supporting cast in the NFL, an awesome offensive line, a fantastic wide receiver core. He also has a GM that is bold and is going to make sure that they give him as many weapons as possible. I think the floor is just a lot higher for Jalen Hurts than it is for Jaden Daniels. But I also understand the appeal of Jaden Daniels. What's crazy is the age is not all that different. Jalen Hurts is only 26. Jaden Daniels is 24, going to turn 25 this year. It's not that big of a gap. Over on Pro Football Focus, if you're watching with us on YouTube, you can see that there's a pretty sizable gap between Daniels and Allen. He has Nathan Yonke has Josh Allen as QB2, 23rd overall. Lamar Jackson at QB3, Jalen Hurts at QB4, and then Joe Burrow, QB5. And this is something that Matt Williamson and I have talked about over the last couple weeks is we feel like there's a pretty massive gap after the top 4 quarterbacks. We think once you get to the Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes range, there's a big difference. Joe Burrow right now in Dynasty League Football, 48th overall, 49.1 ADP. He should not be that close to Jalen Hurts because of the injury stuff. There's just not a lot of rushing upside. You're getting a couple years younger with Jalen Hurts. If I'm in a Dynasty League and I'm doing a startup draft, I don't want to be the one to draft the quarterback 5 or quarterback 6 or quarterback 4. I want to, after that top 4, I probably want to be drafting the quarterbacks in that QB 10, QB 11 range. Maybe you get Caleb Williams. Maybe you get Justin Herbert. CJ Stroud is in that range. Bo Nix. There's just not a lot of value in spending a 4th or 5th round pick in your startup drafts. And when it comes to trade, I'm trying to trade the likes of Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes and trying to trade down move one of those guys to try to get Caleb Williams. I don't know how likely that is in your dynasty leagues, even though they're being drafted. Well, a big spot between those guys, but that's the goal for me. Let's continue to look at some of the other rankings here from Pro Football Focus when it comes to quarterbacks. QB6 right now is Patrick Mahomes. That matches what we have over on Dynasty League Football. QB7, Caleb Williams. Over on Dynasty League Football, you've got Kyler Murray, which I think is rich. I don't think Kyler Murray should be QB7. I would much prefer Caleb Williams, so we are aligned here with Pro Football Focus. Moving down some more, Kyler Murray, QB9. Bo Nix, QB8. That is an aggressive stand on Bo Nix. That's putting a lot of faith in Sean Payton to design an offense that's going to get him more touchdowns, that's going to give him more rushing potential. And I just don't see the playmakers yet to be that bold. You look at all these other quarterbacks and all their weaponry. Denver easily has the worst. You're relying on Cortland Sutton. Marvin Mims maybe taking a step. Pat Bryant becoming the next Marquise Colston or Michael Thomas, as Sean Payton mentioned. I understand the appeal of Bo Nix. I think that's a little bit too much for me to stomach. But again, that's a really good offensive mind in a division that has some really good quarterbacks. Let's continue to go down the quarterback rankings. QB 11, Drake May. QB 12, CJ Stroud. QB 13, Brock Purdy. And that's where I want to stop. I think Brock Purdy's ADP is one of the most fascinating we have in Dynasty Leagues right now. On Dynasty League Football, QB 19, way too low. Just signed a big-time contract extension. Kyle Shanahan, arguably the best offensive mind in the league. They've had injuries. The weaponry isn't as good as it was a couple years ago. But we've seen Brock Purdy average about 260 yards per game for every one of his starts. Doesn't give you a ton of rushing upside, but enough that you feel good about putting him in the lineup. He's young. I think Purdy is closer to a low-end QB1 than he is QB 19, QB 20. So I really appreciate that stance here from Pro Football Focus. Let's continue just a little bit further down as we get into the quarterback 14 range, which is Jared Goff. QB 15 is Jordan Love. I would prefer Love over Goff. That doesn't make any sense to me. Baker Mayfield, QB 16, quite a bit lower than what we have on Dynasty League Football. Trevor Lawrence at QB 17, and this is the last one I wanted to get to. Justin Fields at QB 18. Now that is a bold take. I understand the reasoning why you'd rank him that high, because when he starts, he gives you elite rushing production. The Jets aren't going to have any choice but to play him this year. The backup is Tyrod Taylor, so Justin Fields is going to get the opportunity to start moving forward. But he really signed a one-year deal this offseason. This is not a long-term commitment by the Jets. We've already seen the Bears move on. We've already seen the Steelers move on. This is likely the last chance for Justin Fields. I would just prefer some of these other quarterbacks that are going lower that I think have more stability, whether it's like a Michael Penix, who played well last year for the Falcons, who was the number 8 overall pick. He's going to get plenty of chances. Dak Prescott, who is in year 1 of his new contract extension. I understand the age difference and the lack of rushing upside. I would rather have Dak. J.J. McCarthy, same thing. I think Justin Fields is going to put up big numbers this year, but if it doesn't translate to winning and being a successful quarterback, we could see the Jets move on in 2026 and Fields being right back to being a backup quarterback. That's just a little bit too risky for me at QB 18. All right, let's talk about some Ohio State wide receivers that are grouped together. We will get to that next. Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NFL Scouting Show. As training camps get closer and moves are being made, host Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino will make you the most informed NFL fan this offseason. Find Locked On NFL Scouting on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. All right, welcome back. We are taking a look at Pro Football Focus's latest Dynasty rankings, courtesy of Nathan Yonke, a friend of the show who's been on here a few times. Let's discuss some Ohio State receivers, because This is one of the most fascinating groups of receivers that I just can't figure out. It's the Marvin Harrison, Garrett Wilson, Jaxon Smith-Njigba range. So on Dynasty League football, we've got Garrett Wilson as wide receiver 11, 20th overall. Marvin Harrison Jr., wide receiver 12, 21st overall. Jaxon Smith-Njigba, wide receiver 13, 22nd overall. On Dynasty League football, those guys are grouped very close together in terms of ADP. We have Jaxon Smith-Njigba as wide receiver 11, Marvin Harrison Jr., wide receiver 13, and Garrett Wilson, wide receiver 14. So it's just flipped a little bit. And if you were to ask me right now, of these three receivers, which one would I prefer the most in my Dynasty leagues? I think the one that's going to be the most productive this year is Jaxon Smith-Njigba. But if you were asking me which one has the most upside, I think it's Marvin Harrison Jr. And which player holds the most value in Dynasty leagues, I think it's Marvin Harrison Jr. It's and I know that draft capital isn't the end all be all, but when you're the number 4 overall pick in a draft and you have the name Marvin Harrison Jr. and you were talked about as a generational prospect, people tend to remember that when it comes to trading them, and managers hold on to that even if the production isn't there. And I think that's why someone like Trevor Lawrence, first couple of years of his career, even though the numbers weren't unbelievable, he was almost impossible to trade for. It's taken multiple years of him underachieving to kind of drop his ADP. So I think Marvin Harrison Jr. he's going to have a fantastic year. He was playing as an X receiver in Arizona, still put up almost 900 yards, had 8 touchdowns. Wasn't a disappointing season at all. It just was relative to Malik Nabers and Brian Thomas Jr. So I would prefer Marvin Harrison Jr. I think Garrett Wilson's probably going to have the most targets of this group, but when you're considering who those targets are coming from, I don't feel great about that. I think the most interesting thing here is of these offenses, Jets, Cardinals, Seahawks, projecting forward, which one do you feel the best about? Jets obviously have a whole new coaching staff. Seahawks, new quarterback in Sam Darnold. They drafted Jalen Milroe in the 3rd round. Is he the eventual quarterback there? They have Clint Kubiak calling plays. And then Arizona, you have Kyler Murray, who's easily the best quarterback of the 3. But is this offense going to finally get past the Stone Age and start having some creative passing concepts? We'll see. Will they move Marvin Harrison Jr. around to get him some more layup targets, as Matt Harmon likes to say? I don't know. I don't feel particularly strong about any of these 3 receivers. I think ideally you would want any one of these 3 to be your like wide receiver 2. And that's about where they're being drafted, wide receiver 11, 12, 13. It's just funny that they're all grouped together. I believe they all played together for one season. So I want to know from you guys, between that group, Garrett Wilson, Jaxon Smith-Njigba, Marvin Harrison Jr., which one do you prefer in your Dynasty leagues? The age difference isn't all that great. Garrett Wilson is the oldest at wide receiver at 24. JSN is 23. Marvin Harrison Jr. is 22. So usually I would just default to age, but because the ages are so close here, I don't think it matters all that much. Take the player that you think has the best shot of getting to 1,200 yards, double-digit touchdowns. And for me, that's Marvin Harrison Jr. One more thing I wanted to mention really quickly. Nathan and PFF aren't particularly high on Travis Hunter, the wide receiver prospect. They have him well below Tetairoa McMillan. They have him below T. Higgins. Whereas over on Dynasty League football, we have Travis Hunter at wide receiver 15 over there. So just a little bit of a difference in opinion on Hunter right now. I'm a little bit more bullish on him than maybe what PFF is. So he's another one to just kind of gauge the interest in your rookie drafts in your Dynasty leagues, because I do think he's going to be valued differently. And I think the league setup matters. If you're in a league that gives you a point for a tackle or a half a point for a tackle, I think that could be enough to move him ahead of other players, even if he's only playing 15, 20 snaps a game on defense. I know I'm in some of these bigger IDP leagues where you get a point for every tackle. So if you can play him as a cornerback who's playing mostly as a receiver, obviously that's going to change it up a lot as well. So, yeah, let us know on the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast who you would prefer between Garrett Wilson, Marvin Harrison Jr., and Jaxon Smith-Njigba. I would love to get some feedback there. Go to follow the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We are free and available on all platforms. You can follow me at Marcus_Mosher. We'll have a show tomorrow with Matt Williamson. Make sure you're tuning in for that. We'll see you guys right back here on Wednesday.